Independence Day?
Oh, it's July 4th, Taka. Right. Okay. Beseder. So that's why I called the friend. I called a friend in Montreal. He said he was going to come. Okay. All right. So we have two. Thank you very much. Are we dedicating this to anybody? No. You know what?
There isn't one this week. You can, but whatever.
You know, a sense madricha. Her name is ADINA. Welcome, Lena. Since Madricha ADINA just got engaged, Ba'al Shem, she's
Mazal Tov.
To her ZEVI WINEBERG, DINA WEISNER, ZEVI WINEBERG. We're going to dedicate this teaching to them. They should do all the proper preparations. It's a welcome Dax, welcome Dara. I was saying that there's one of the beautiful idea I heard from Rabbi Ginsburg about engagements. All the people who are waiting to get married, once you get engaged, what's the most beautiful gift that a bride and groom can bring to each other under the chuppah? Now, there are different customs. There's you're supposed to, the kala is supposed to give the chatan a watch. You know, the custom is a gold watch if possible, and the groom gives the bride also something, a piece of jewelry out of gold. Gold is you know, let's say the Beis Hamikdash, the temple was silver was the currency that people traded, because the word silver in Hebrew is kesef, for money. But it says, why was gold created? What did we need gold for? Gold was for the Beis Hamikdash. Gold was for the temple. We could have just got away with just with silver. Why did God make gold? Why did he make another precious metal? Okay, and the answer is because it was for the temple, to make the temple especially beautiful. So that's the custom that the bride and the groom give each other something made out of gold. But my teacher, one of my teachers, Rabbi Ginsburg, said that the best gift that a bride and a groom can give to each other under the chuppah are the positive changes that they made in themselves from the time they got engaged. In other words, when they got engaged, they accepted each other the way that they were. Okay. All of the positive changes they can make between the engagement and the wedding, that's the best possible gifts that the bride and groom can give to each other. Okay, so we're wishing ADINA and ZEVI that they should do all the preparations for the wedding and to bring each other the most appropriate gifts that they can, one to the other. Okay, here we are today. Now, yesterday was Gimel Tammuz. The third day of Tammuz was the day, you know, of the passing. Do I think the Rebbe passed away? To be honest, I don't think the Rebbe passed away, because I told you all so many times, evil people are dead even when they're alive, and righteous people are alive even after they pass away. In other words, what's the reality of the righteous person is his positive actions, the Torah that he studied, the mitzvahs that he did. Okay, that's who he is, not the physical body, and that he eats dinner. That's not him. What's him is the mitzvahs that he did and the spiritual events that he caused to happen. Okay, and so those things never die; they're forever. So a tzaddik is alive even if he passes away. Okay, and the other statement is it says by Yaakov Avinu, Zara b'chaim afu b'chaim. If his children are alive, then he's certainly alive. Okay, and why doesn't it say it by Abraham? Because Abraham, he had a son that wasn't perfect, Yishmael. And why do we say about Isaac? Because Isaac also had a son that wasn't perfect, Esau, who had all of his children were tzaddikim, was only Yaakov. So it says Zar b'chaim, afu b'chaim. If his children are alive, then he's alive. Okay, and we are the Rebbe's children. I want to say that there's I'm going to say a few stories now about the Rebbe, but we're going to start the class. The first story is that, you know, one of the by the 6-day war, the Rebbe started a campaign of putting on tefillin on people, and some the Torah scholars were incensed. When tefillin are a holy thing, they're almost like a sefer Torah, right? And a person who didn't wash his hands, a person who touched dirty things, a person whose life was involved in impure things, and you're taking that person and you're just pulling him in the street and you're putting on tefillin on him. People went crazy, okay, and there was almost a people were saying terrible things about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And one of the leaders, we don't want to say his name, one of the leaders of that movement, years went by, and one of his children, God forbid, went off the derech, just stopped being involved in Jewish things. Okay, and what happened? Some time passed, and he actually met some Chabad boys in the street that they would spend every Friday afternoon, instead of relaxing and chilling and going to the pool. Every Chabad yeshiva student spends his Friday afternoons going and putting tefillin on people. Some people have roots, some people stand on street corners. Oh, very involved thing. And that young man from the Orthodox family was stopped by these yeshiva students, and he put on tefillin. And that was his path back to Judaism. And so the father, this is already 10 years later, the father writes to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the first letter, he wrote a first letter complaining bitterly to the Rebbe, how dare he do this, and it's disgusting, and he must stop it right away. And the Rebbe didn't answer him. And 10 years later, he wrote another letter saying that I please, I beg your forgiveness. Your mitzvot tefillin, your tefillin campaign saved my son's Jewish life. Right? And the Rebbe said, that's how you feel about your son, okay? Excuse me, it was his grandson. That's how you feel about your grandson, right? That's how we feel about all the Jewish people, that they are our children. Okay, so that was to connect it to that. Okay, and I prepared. I don't know what time it is. There are some stories. I read a few. I read. What is that? I don't know what it is. How do I turn it off? Oh. I read a collection of stories, and I saw a few things about people that I knew, actually, that I know, and I wanted to share. So there was one story about. Hey, I'm going to tell you a story. Maybe I'm even afraid to tell it, but I'm going to tell. Let's just start with Rabbi Gorelik, Zalman Gorelik. Zalman Gorelik was the rabbi of Kfar Chabad. Okay, and it says in 1961. He was in his 80s, and he wasn't so well. Okay, and he wrote. He had his he had come from Europe straight to Israel, and he was a Chabad Chassid, and he had been a Chassid of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he hadn't come. When did the Rebbe become Rebbe? In 1951. So 10 years went by. Again, planes were much more expensive then. It was much more difficult to take a plane. Okay, but he came in 1961. There were charters then, and he met the Rebbe face to face for the first time. And he said to the Rebbe, he's asking the Rebbe for permission to stop being the Rav of Kfar Chabad, right? That he's what's this one saying? You know, I just remember. I can't think of exactly the language. Just give me 1 second. Ooh, how embarrassing. Just 1 second. Zalman Gorelik. I don't want to make a mistake. No, you know what? I can't find it. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Here, I got it. So Rav Gorelik was 80 years old, right? And he says to the Rebbe, he wants to stop being the Rav. First of all, he's old, right? And second, it takes away time from it steals time from what he really wants to do, is to sit and study Torah all day. And the Rebbe said to him, Rabbi Gorelik, it doesn't steal time from you, it adds time. By doing this mitzvah of being, it's going to add time. That's what Rebbe said to him. And that person lived for another 18 years. I know, because when I was a yeshiva student in Kfar Chabad, and I came for before the holidays, and I wanted to ask the Rav opinion of whether I should keep 1 day or 2 days. I actually went into him, and he was a very old man. He was 97, 98, but clear as a bell, and we had a short conversation. So I met this person, okay, right? That the Rebbe told him that staying on the job is going to add to his life, not take away from his life. And it actually came out to be true. The second thing that Rebbe said was, and this is like really what caught my attention, was what he said to the Rebbe also at the same time. He said, another reason why I want to leave is because Kfar Chabad, when I first came, were filled with farmers. Now it's filled with Torah scholars. Okay, and I don't think that I'm on that level to be the rabbi of such a community. And the Rebbe said to him, so become on the level. Get to that level. The Rebbe at 80, the Rebbe is telling him that he should keep studying, keep adding to his to become even better. And that's one lesson for all of us, right? That wherever you are, you can do more. Okay. And then there's a story about Reuven Dunin. Reuven Dunin was a famous chassid. He was a tractor driver. Okay. And he was also approached by students in the street. He started putting on tefillin. He was from a kibbutz, and he became one of the Rebbe's most ardent chassidim. He had a very big following, and he was a straightforward, simple guy. He told it like it was. He couldn't stand any chitzonius, any putting on airs, any arrogance. He was unbelievable. Okay. And so, but he believed his whole life was from the Rebbe. So when after he was married, he said, what's the one thing that parents in Israel go crazy trying to buy their parents a home? That's the security that a parent tries to buy their child. And he finally was able to put together a home, and he was signing the home. And what did he do? He took all of the paperwork and he sent it to the Rebbe, and he signed it over to the Rebbe. He wanted the Rebbe, he had nothing else to give. He wanted to give the Rebbe his home, right? And the Rebbe sent all the paperwork back, and he wrote him a note that any house that's filled with peace and the ways of peace and the ways of pleasantness, okay, that's my house already. Okay, that's the second thing that we can learn from the Rebbe, right? And the third thing was Yochanan. I have so many stories. Maybe it will tell some stories after, if there's time. Okay, but Yochanan Gerari, Chaya Bracha, was actually, my wife was a student of Rabbi Gerari. Okay, and he was then Trenton, New Jersey. I know people from America. Trenton, New Jersey was then a Jewish community, a large Jewish community, and who became the Rav there? Yochanan Gerari was a Chabad Chassid, and but the people there were, again, even when I was growing up, there were parts of Brooklyn that were farms still. Okay, in the 50s, parts of Brooklyn were farms. Okay, and so New Jersey was certainly farms. Okay, so they were not very sophisticated people. And so Rabbi Gordon said to the Rebbe, he had a private audience once, and he says, Rebbe, I can't, it's very hard for me. Sometimes I have to be very harsh to my congregants. Sometimes I have to give them musar, and it's very, very difficult for me, and they don't listen also, and I feel that I'm failing. And the Rebbe says, what should I do? He asked the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, again, I don't know about, when I was growing up, there was a thing called a schwitz. Maybe they probably still exist, which is a sauna or a steam bath. Okay, and you go in there and you you start at the bottom, and the place where it's the hottest is up a few steps, right? So you start at the bottom, and then when you get hotter, you get hotter and hotter. And then there was this thing. You're not going to believe me. There are some people that are not going to believe me, but they would actually take leaves from a eucalyptus plant tree, and they would smack you with it in the schwitz. Okay, and I tell you the truth, it didn't feel bad. It was like, my father, my uncle, they loved it. And I didn't even mind it. One of my cousins would hit me with these wet, hot leaves, and you're in this place where you can't barely breathe, and it's so hot, and right after you run out, you jump into the cold pool. Anyway, that was how we used to spend our Sundays in New York in the 50s. Anyway, so the Rebbe said to Rabbi Gordon, he says, what happens in a schwitz? The first you start low and you move up steps, and when you're at the highest step, somebody comes and smacks you with these eucalyptus leaves. Well, let me ask you something. The Rebbe said to Rabbi Gordon, if somebody would come to you in the street and give you a gazette with a big bundle of wet eucalyptus leaves. If somebody would do that, what would you do? You would go crazy. What were you nuts? You're in the middle of the street and you smack me with a bunch of wet eucalyptus leaves. Oh, when is it geschmack to be smacked by a bunch of wet eucalyptus leaves? First of all, when you moved higher and you're all warmed up. If you want to be able to help your congregation grow, first you have to elevate them, and then you have to warm them up. If a person's elevated and he's warm, and this is true about a husband and wife, it's true about a teacher and student, right? Then the person can hear the suggestions and the instructions that you give to them. Okay, and so that was the instructions that the Rebbe told. I have two. What time is it? I know. Some Wendy loves the stories. I don't know Dara. I don't know if Dara likes the stories, but I have two more stories, and they're long, so I'm gonna just tell them quickly. But they were the ones that had the biggest effect on me. I study with a person, one of the local community leaders. His name, it doesn't matter what his name is, but he's a very special person, and we study every week. And this Shabbat, which was the third day of Tammuz, which was the day that the Rebbe passed away, he passed. I don't like to say passed away. He moved to a different dimension. Okay, so this community leader, he was leading the Verbrengen for hours on Shabbos afternoon. That means he drank a lot. I was listening. A tent was filled with soldiers, so I had nobody to speak to, and I was listening. But he was drinking a lot of l'chaim and singing and saying over things from the heart. Okay, and so when we met after mincha, I asked him, "How are you feeling?" Because I meant, "How are you feeling after such a heavy afternoon?" And he said to me, "How am I feeling? How can you feel after we're waiting to see the Rebbe for 28 years?" Okay, so from that perspective, and some of you, Daniel, welcome. Who else came in just now? Daniel Flieger, also welcome, and Lena, welcome. Okay, and Wendy, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to tell two stories. One is Chaim Gutnick. Chaim Gutnick was a person that I had a lot to do with Ascent in the early years. He helped arrange a large grant from us, from the will of somebody from Australia. So I had quite a bit to do with him. I knew him as an honest, straightforward person. And this story is about him, that in 1961, he was living in Australia. He was a rabbi in Australia, and he had survived the Holocaust. There was a very famous Litvish yeshiva in Europe, in a place called Telz. It was the Telz yeshiva, and he was a student. Now, most of the students in the yeshiva were murdered by the Nazis from the Holocaust. A few escaped. Only one chavrusa. What's a chavrusa? Chavrusa is two learning partners. Two learning partners were something very special. These are two young men that sat for years together, and they literally combed the depths of Torah together. And so theirs was the only chavruta, the only pair of study partners that actually escaped the Holocaust. One was Rabbi Chaim Gutnick, and he became a rabbi in Australia, and the other was Mordechai Gifter. Mordechai Gifter is a famous head of a yeshiva, a famous Litvisher person, not Chasidic at all, and you'll hear in a minute. All right, and so Chaim Gutnick goes into the Lubavitcher Rebbe for a private audience, and the Rebbe asks him if he's going to the wedding of Rabbi Gifter's daughter, which was happening in a few days, in a week or two, if he's going to still be in America. And he said he was going to still be in America, but how could he go? Mordechai Gifter speaks such terrible things about Lubavitch, about you. It's inappropriate that any Lubavitcher Chassid would go to the wedding. Okay, and the Rebbe said, but how will it look? How will it look that you were the only chavruta that actually escaped the Holocaust, and you're here in New York and you don't go to the wedding? And so Chaim understood that the Rebbe wanted him to go. Okay, so a few weeks later, he's on his way back to Australia, and Reb Chaim comes in again to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, "Oh, did you go to the wedding?" He says, "Yes." "Tell me about it." And he says, "This community leader had this honor, and this community leader had this honor, and this great rabbi had this honor, and this other great rabbi had this honor, and this head of the yeshiva had this thing, and he's going through the list of all these great people, and the Rebbe keeps asking him more and more questions, and so Chaim knew that that wasn't what the Rebbe wanted to hear, and so he said that 2 nights before the wedding, Rabbi Gifter called together all of these leaders, these Jewish leaders, not Hasidic Jewish leaders that had come to the United States, to New York to participate in the wedding of his child. And he stood up and he said that he wants to renew the decree, the gezer, the decree of the Gra, of the Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, against the Chasidim. That just like in the time of the Gra, by the way, we know now that he was misled, that and because he was misled, he made a cherem, a negative decree against the Chasidim. And so Mordechai Gifter said, but we know the truth, and they're doing things that are inappropriate for the Jewish community, and we want to renew the cherem. And there were like 20 people there, and nobody spoke. Okay. And so Chaim Gutnick, Rabbi Gutnick, he said to himself, he's saying to the Rebbe, Adam Kona Olama Berega Achas, a person sometimes can buy his place in the world to come in an instant. And he starts listing all of the signs that Maimonides, the last book of Maimonides, talks about what are when Mashiach will come and what are the signs of Mashiach, and there's certain things there that it says about Mashiach, right? And so this Rabbi Gutnick also, he stood up and he said, "Is there anybody who gave over his entire life to Torah, like the Lubavitcher? Oh, who's anybody who's a descendant of the tribe of Yehuda?" Who gave over his life for Judaism, like the Rebbe, and nobody spoke up, because there isn't anybody, and there's anybody who cares about the entire world, right? And every Jewish community as the Rebbe was showing, like the Rebbe. And is there anybody whose whole life was just dedicated to doing God's will in every single place, right? Like the Rebbe, and nobody said anything, and so he sat down, okay. And that was it. It passed. Nobody else spoke up. And the suggestion of Rabbi Gifter to do this tragic thing, to split the communities in a tragic way, it wasn't fulfilled. And the Rebbe heard this, and the Rebbe said to him, and they said to them first, the Rebbe said 2 things. First of all, I'm not afraid. I tell you, if there's something that I'm going to say that you don't understand, anybody ask me. I hope it's clear. The Rebbe looked at Chaim Gutnick and he said 2 things. He said, number 1, I'm not afraid. In other words, he wasn't afraid of their accusations, their negative thoughts about him. Right? Why? Because I do everything together with my shver, with my father-in-law. His father-in-law passed away 11 years before. Okay, but his famous stories about how the Rebbe would communicate with his father-in-law. Communicate. I can't say more than that. Okay, I do everything together with my shver, right? And the second thing, the Rebbe looked at Chaim Gutnick and said, "But to succeed, I need help." What was the Rebbe saying? The Rebbe saying, in other words, Chaim had defended the Rebbe by saying that the Rebbe had all the signs of the Messiah. And the Rebbe said, but for me to succeed, I need help. And he was calling out to each of us that we have to help people. And we're going to talk about it now, how to help. I hope that story was clear. And this is one very short story. The last thing was when I was how can I make it very short? There's another great tzaddik that I knew, that I knew his father. His name was Yitzchak Ifregan. Okay, and he had. Should I tell you this story? Okay, I'm going to tell it. I'm not going to hold back. Okay, the Rabbi Ifragan had a yeshiva, and he was a Sephardic descent, and so he had all the boys learning in the yeshiva were from Sephardim, but some of them came from Chabad families because he was a very big Torah scholar, and parents they wanted him to be there. So once a boy, not the Chabad person, comes into the thing and says, "Sadly, my grandmother is very, very ill, and maybe we should all say for her tillin." And so one of the yeshiva boys, who was a Chabad boy, so he says, "Oh, let's write to the Rebbe and see what the Rebbe says." And so they wrote to the Rebbe, and it was an emergency situation. The woman was deathly ill, his grandmother was deathly ill, and they asked the Rebbe for a blessing. And while they were sitting there, right, they got a phone call back from the Rebbe's office, saying that the Rebbe gave a bracha d'bia or a fuah shlema, a complete healing. Okay, very nice. The boy went home that day and came back the next morning and says, "I have bad news. My grandmother passed away. We got a call from the hospital. She passed away, and I won't be in tomorrow because of tomorrow's the funeral." Okay, and so now, okay, so the point of the story is, think how that Lubavitcher boy felt. He says, "Don't worry, the Rebbe gave a bracha, it's for sure going to come true." Right? And think of his embarrassment. Think of how he's thinking to himself, "Oh my gosh, how could he possibly show his face to all the other boys and teachers when the Rebbe gave his bracha and it didn't come out?" Okay, and so the next day, the young man comes back to the yeshiva, and they'll say to him, "What happened? I thought you were going to go to the funeral." He says, "No. What happened was that she had passed away. They thought she passed away. They took her on the way to the morgue, and she came back to life, and she was moving again. So they rushed her back to the intensive care unit, and she's improving, right? Okay, so." It's a ridiculous story. It's okay, but I don't know about you, but every single thing that the Rebbe told me, all the things that the Rebbe, everything that the Rebbe told me, and the Rebbe told Chai Baruch and I a lot of things, okay, and not only the things that he told, the things that I studied from the Rebbe, I never found one time where the Rebbe wasn't correct. Okay, and so if the Rebbe said that the Mashiach is going to come soon, okay, then a person shouldn't lose faith, and he has to hold on with two hands, and push ahead. Okay, I'm going to tell you, you're lucky. That's only half the stories I have. Let's go to learn the text. Okay, we're doing 134 and 135. Here we go. This is an unbelievable thing, and I actually invited one of our group because I thought he was going to enjoy this very much. He says, "Beer," it's the Ba'al Shem Tov said like this. There's a verse in the book of Devarim. It says, when you go to war, first of all, the famous teaching from the students of the Ba'al Shem Tov is when you go to war, you have to be on your enemy. You have to have the moral imperative has to be in place. If a person feels that he's doing the right thing, you will not fail. Okay, it's only people that feel that they're not doing the right thing. So that's what it means when you go out to war on your enemies. You have to be spiritually, morally superior. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about now. It says when you go out to war on your enemies, and you take them prisoners. It's actually the word that you take their prisoners. Okay, you capture their prisoners. Okay, we'll see what that means in a minute. But the simple meaning is when you go to war on your enemy and you take prisoners. Okay, so what's this taking prisoners? What is this going to war? Is the whole thing talking about? Okay, and so what's war about? Okay, war is not about chasing away the enemy. War is about capturing the enemy, putting him to work for us, and that's what he wants to talk about here. That who is our enemy? The enemy is our Yetzer Hara, our evil inclination. Let's just, how many times have we spoken about it? But let's just put it in the context. A person's evil inclination is whatever holds them back from fulfilling their potential. Okay, all right, and so when the Torah says, when you go to war on your enemies, which enemies is it talking about? It's talking about our evil inclination, and the purpose of this battle is to take not just to chase away the inclination, just not to push away the external, the symptoms, right? To ignore him. It's literally to is him to our benefit. Second. Okay. Now, so what is it? That's what he says inside. Look inside. What is the Yetzer Hara? The Yetzer Hara is that part of us that says you're not going to succeed, so why try? It's the part of us that says in the morning, right? Stay in bed for another 15 minutes, right? You need the sleep, right? You'll come a little bit, late to davening or to the office, or somebody will wait for you a little bit, or all of your morning activities it won't come out the best way, but you deserve it a little. That's the Yetzer Hara, okay? So when a person has to take exactly the same arguments, the tinus of the evil inclination, right? And that's how he has to kovesh. That's how he has to conquer his evil inclination. In other words, the first thing is, and it's such an unbelievable thing, think about it. First of all, you have to get the dichotomy here, right? I want you to look at the world in a different way, right? We have a divine soul and we have an animal soul. Right? And the negative part of the animal soul is the evil inclination. Okay, and so the divine soul is the thing that wants us to move ahead, to succeed in the good things in our life, to do kindness and goodness in the world. That's the divine soul. The evil inclination is all the things that want to limit that. Okay, and so what's the most powerful thing about the evil inclination? That's something that how quick they are. He never rests. As soon as you wake up in the morning, he's talking in your ear, stay in bed. When it's time to go to sleep at night, he says, stay awake longer. To heck with tomorrow, right? When you're eating, he says, eat too much, it tastes good. When somebody does something to aggravate us, instead of saying, when somebody says something to aggravate us, what do you say to them? What do you say to them? You say that if a person is shouting at me, they're in pain. They're in pain. What can I do to help them? That's the way to deal with a person who's angry at me. And how do most people, me included, how do we respond to somebody who's angry at us? I let myself become the victim. I says how dare he speak to me that way, and a person explodes. Okay, that's all the Yetzer Hara. So a person has to, just the way that the evil inclination is always on the job, and he never relaxes, and he finds every opportunity to try to trip us up. We have to use exactly the same quickness and cleverness, right, to answer him and to push him away. And that's what he says inside. We have to use the kindness, the arguments of the Yetzer Hara himself. And that's how we conquer our evil inclination. What does that mean? She'im hu Yetzer Hara zoris, just like he's so quick, he's so fast in his service. Why is he so quick? What is the Yetzer Hara? Guys, he's just an angel. He's an angel doing God's service. And he goes crazy to do God's service. Okay? Because why? He's commanded by the Almighty. And like this is the famous, we spoke about it about 3-4 months ago, the famous analogy of the Zohar. We have a lot of Zohar tonight. The Zohar says about the king, it gives an analogy about a king who hires a beautiful, there's a word, a nicer word, but a prostitute, a courtesan, I think, not courtesan. I don't know. He hires a prostitute, and he wants the prostitute to seduce his son, right? And to try with all of her ability to seduce his son, because he wants to see if his son is of the proper moral caliber to become the king, right? And the Zohar focuses on the prostitute, she loses whatever happens. If she succeeds in seducing the son of the king is going to give her payment, but he's going to hate her because she seduced his son. And if she doesn't succeed in seducing it, then the king's going to think that she didn't work hard enough to do it. So whichever way it goes, she loses it. The pathos of the prostitute in the story. So he says, but the same way with the evil inclination, he's doing God's will. God's will for him is to trip us up, right? Like it says, like the Zohar says about the analogy of the prostitute. From this, a person has to take he has to musar is the teachings. He has to learn from it la'atzmai. To use zoris that we also have to as soon as we wake up in the morning. That's why the beautiful custom is, as soon as you open your eyes, you hold your hands over your testicles. Mod ani lefanecha, I admit to before you, mod ani lefanecha melchai living and everlasting King. Shechazarta be that you've returned my soul to me. Rabba emunasecha, great is your faithfulness, and jump out of bed. Because that's how we answer the Yetzer Hara. A person has to, okay, and I know we spoke about it before. If you're accustomed to having washed negelvasa by the bed, you wash your hands and you jump up and you right away put your clothes on and do what you have to do and say morning blessings. Okay, we don't even let just like the Yetzer Hara is right there on site to convince us to do something negative. We have to be right there on site to do something positive. Okay, not to listen to our evil inclination. Again, I gave the example of getting up in the morning, or of a person losing their temper, or of a person eating too much. All of those self-destructive things that hold a person back from fulfilling their spiritual potential. Okay, from being able to give their all to fulfill their mission in the world. Okay, that is the Yetzer Hara. Okay, and we have to the opposite. Instead of listening to the Yetzer Hara, we have to do what we know that God wants from us. Okay, right? And this is now. Okay, now. This is what it means. The Shavisa Shivyo. The verse actually says, when you go to battle, when you go to war with your enemy, you have to take their prisoner. Shavisa Shivyo. Their prisoners, you have to take prisoners. In other words, you have to take the Yetzer Hara, right? And you have to make him, into Shavisa Shivyoi, right? That you have to take the evil inclination that he had his mission, and you have to make, wait, I'm not saying it right. Just 1 second. Right, that instead of the evil inclination being possessed by evil and negativity, when we take him prisoner and we transform him into we actually use his quickness and his cleverness, and we use it to serve Hashem instead. Then we're taking who was a prisoner of evil and making him a prisoner of good. Okay, and the famous, I have two things to say about, I once have, I think I even said it before here, about it says Evan Masu Abayna. I'm sure I said it before. Evan Masu Abayna Hoisla Rosh Pina. It says about the temple that they had a stone, and that then the altar could only be built of stones that weren't hewn. You couldn't break them in any way. You had to take natural stones and form that. So they found a stone that was an interesting stone, but it didn't fit any place, and they put it aside. Okay, and when they got to finish the altar, that stone was exactly the piece that fit in on the top in the most important place. Okay, that's the analogy. How does it fit in our lives? It's the thing that we push away. It's a thing that we say, we can't overcome this. Nobody can stop me from eating, or nobody can stop me from being angry, or nobody can stop me from sleeping an extra hour in the morning, and nobody can stop me from smoking cigarettes, and nobody can stop me from all of the 101 negative things that a person is faced with. No. And when he says, right, that is the secret to my success, overcoming even in a small way, even maybe you won't start right away that you knock the whole thing out. But even in a small way, every step of looking that difficulty in the face and transforming it, and transforming the negative energy into positive energy. That's what it means that when we go out to war on our enemies and we're taking, right, what was captured by evil, the Shavisa Shivyo, and we're taking what was a prisoner before of evil and making it a prisoner of holiness. Okay, now there is a, okay, now I just want to, one second. Okay, there's a very, 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 I think, beautiful, there's a book called a Yom Yom. Yom Yom, and it's things that the previous Lubavitch Rebbe said, that the Rebbe took and he collected it into a book of daily aphorisms, and there's a book in English. This is Tackling Life's Tasks. It was published by Sichas in English, and it translates each of the sayings in a very beautiful way, and even gives a commentary. So I just want to read you one of the things. He says, what are we talking about? We're talking about learning from the evil inclination. What's the biggest thing about the inclination? Evil inclination is it's quick. What time is it? Okay. The second thing about the evil inclination is that it's clever. Okay. And we have to use the quickness of the evil inclination and the cleverness of the evil. We have to literally look at how the Yetzer Hara stops us in our tracks and use those arguments against it. Okay, now, so the famous thing, the Zusha of Anapoli was a student of the Maggid, who everybody remembers. The Maggid was the main student of the Ba'al Shem Tov. And so what did they, the Rabbi Zusha said that we have to learn from all of our negative character traits. Okay, every single negative thing that we have, I want to say, look at a person a person who lost it. Just say, I can't even think of somebody. I live in Tzfat, the holy city, but everybody can think of somebody who lost it, who spends their life involved in physical pleasures, and that's where their heart and soul and body are. Well, you know what? You can even learn from that person, right? Just the way that his heart and soul and body are so involved in those negative things. That's what we have to do for holiness. We have to get our heart and soul and body involved in positive things. Okay, and so the Rav Zusha said, you can even learn from a thief. I'm just going to read it. I didn't have to. I just found it, and I'm not going to explain it. I'm just going to read what he says, but it's so beautiful. It's the saying of the third of Iyar, the third day of Iyar. Okay, and what does it say? That you can learn from all character traits, even those that are not good, or even evil in name and description, can be used as a lesson in serving God. In this vein, the saintly Rabbi Meshulam Zusha of Anapoli learned several approaches to divine service by pondering the work of a thief. He learned from a thief. Okay, everybody think of a thief. God forbid, we shouldn't ever know from having something stolen from us, but think about a thief. The first thing about a thief is he's modest. He doesn't wear a sign saying, hey guys, I'm a thief. He's undercover. He's like Secret Service, like we said before. Number two, he's prepared to endanger himself. You hear that? For what he wants to accomplish, he puts himself in danger. Wow. Which of us can say that about ourselves? Number three, the smallest details for him are as important as the greatest considerations, right? He's not just there to take somebody's money. He has to be wearing rubber-soled shoes. He has to go to the toilet before he goes on his job, because he doesn't want to have to. He doesn't want to run into problems when he right. The minutest details are by him like the biggest considerations. Okay, think about that in terms of our doing mitzvahs or of our relationships with other people. Where the smallest, minutest details are as important as the great considerations, right? How hard is sometimes just to give a compliment to a person, right? Just to notice something nice about them, right? Okay, number four, he labors with great exertion, right? He works hard. Wow. Okay, number five, he works quickly. He can't sit around and do nothing, right? he exhibits trust and hope. It says that even a thief, when he's in the tunneling under the fence, he's calling out to God, God, please help me. Okay, so how much more so a person who's doing holiness? And here, last one, and anybody who wants it, just send me a note or send it on the group, and I'll send you a copy of it. If he fails the first time, he tries again and again. Okay, so just the way. Look, I think that's, you know what? It's real life. It's life, right? Learning from negative things. That is what makes the world turn. When you can take a negative trait and turn it into something positive, that's a winner. There's nothing like that in the world. Okay, let's move on. Okay, I'm finished for that one. Any questions? I'm talking too much today. No questions. It's supposed to be a dialogue. Okay, thank you, Moshe, for the things. Okay, no.
Maybe that's why he was such a great biblical commentary.
Who what?
Rav Leches. Rav Leches.
Because he was a Reish Lakish. He was the biggest criminal and murderer, and he did tshuva completely. Yeah, but we'll tell that story next week in the class. Okay, anybody else? Wendy, Dara, are you sleeping? Wait, Renata, not a question.
I'm listening to every word.
That's
and taking notes even.
What?
Taking notes.
Taking notes. All right, let's move on. Let's say that was 134. Look at the notes. Now we're going to number 135. Okay, so here I myself didn't really get this completely, and I studied with Rabbi Gershovitz, and so he's talking about the Romach. What's a Romach? Is it Ba'al Shem Tov? Inyan HaRomach. What's the Romach? So it's talking about, by this week's Torah portion is outside of Israel is Chukas. In Israel, it's Balak, and the parsha after Balak is Pinchas. Okay, and so whether you're in Israel or outside of Israel, within the next 2-3 weeks, it's the portion of Pinchas. And what's the story of Pinchas? Pinchas was one of the sons of one of the grandchildren of Aaron, but because he was born before the decree, originally, I think we spoke about it before, the firstborns, everybody who's a firstborn, perk up now. If you're a firstborns have special spiritual power. Okay, and initially the firstborns were supposed to be the priests. Okay, there wasn't going to be a separate priestly class. It was just going to be the firstborns. Okay, okay, and then the firstborns at the sin of the golden calf sinned with everybody else, and the people who actually stood up to protect God's honor were the Levites. And so God, when the temple was actually inaugurated, gave over the leadership, the spiritual leadership of the Jewish people to the Levites and the Kohanim, which is from the family of Levites, and he left out the firstborn. Okay, so who is this Pinchas? Pinchas was one of the children of Aaron, who was born before the decree. Okay, and so since he was born, 1 second, am I saying it right? One second. Aaron and his descendants. I forget. I'm not saying it right, but I don't want to get labor because it's late already. Okay, but Pinchas was not a Kohen. Okay, and I can't. My head's not working, and I'll figure it out later. Okay, but Pinchas's cousins were Kohanim, and his uncles were Kohanim, and his grandfather was a Kohen, but he himself was not a Kohen. Okay, and what did he do? Instead of just shriveling up and being embarrassed, he studied Torah all day. He decided, if I can't be a Kohen, I'm going to be one of the Moses' students. So what happened? One of the princes of the Jewish people took a Midianite princess as a consort. Okay, and according to Jewish tradition, it's forbidden. Okay, and so, but everybody, there was a plague going on. God was very unhappy, and nobody knew what to do, because this the Jewish prince, he says to Moses, "You took also a woman from Midian. Well, so why can't I?" Okay, the difference was that Moses took his wife before the giving of the Torah, and Zimri took his wife after the giving of the Torah. Everybody before the giving of the Torah who was at Mount Sinai became Jewish, and people after were not Jewish. Okay, but the whole thing was such a panic. Nobody knew what to answer. Nobody knew what to do. Pinchas comes forward and says, "Isn't the law that somebody who's jealous for God's honor is allowed to kill a person who's acting inappropriately?" And Moses says, "You were the one you were the one who remembered the law. You delivered the letter. You deliver it. You remembered you brought the letter. You should deliver it." And so, what does it say that Pinchas took he was like a Torah scholar. He was a frail guy, and yet and the whole. All the Jewish people were going crazy, and this is, Zimri took Cosby into his tent, and his whole tribe was standing around it, daring anybody to stop them from cohabitating. And somehow Pinchas hid the spear, and he is able to get into the tent, and he spears them in the middle of cohabitation. Okay, and then he goes out, and this stops I don't know how I possibly said all that. But it's anyway. That's the thing, and he and because that he stopped the plague, God's honor was preserved, right? And God made him into a priest. Okay, that's the story. It's an unbelievable story. Okay, so that is the spear that we're talking about in this. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's the spear. So it says Inyan Ramach. Okay, so now, again, what's a Ramach? A Ramach is numerical value 248. Resh is 200, Mem is 40, and Chet is 8. So Pinchas, his name, Pei Yud Nun Ches, the numerical value of Pinchas's name is 208. And the numerical value of the name Yitzchak, I should have written all this out. It's so ridiculous. But Yitzchak, everybody picture the letters Yud and Tzadik and Chet and Kuf. A Yud is 10 and a Tzadik is 90. So 10 and 90 is 100. Chet is 8, 108, and the Kuf is 8 is 208. So it says Pinchas took the strength of Isaac. Isaac was the one who God was going to, because Abraham was going to bring him as an offering on Mount Sinai. Isaac was the one who never left Eretz Yisrael. Right? Isaac is, whereas Avram is kindness. Yitzchak is severity, power, spiritual energy, right? So it says that Pinchas enclosed himself with the power of Isaac. That's hinted. This is what the Zohar says. It's hinted at in the numerical value of the word for spear, which is a romach, which is the two of the letters are Resh and Ches is 208, and there's the mem, the 40. What's that 40? So if you remember, 2 weeks ago we talked about how to check the evil inclination. Inyan Shchita Yetzer Hara. We learned it, and so the Shchita Yetzer Hara. So the Ba'al Shem Tov says that by taking away there's a letter mem. The letter mem is from the word mavis. Mavis is death, right? That when we by taking away the letter mem from from the Satan's name. Satan's name is Samuel. Okay, right, and taking out the m, the mem there is samach aleph lamed. Samach aleph lamed is a blessing. Samach mem aleph lamed is a curse. We take out the mem from the name of the Satan, and we turn it from a curse into a blessing. So that's what happened here. That Pinchas it took the Ramach. It means he took the power of Yitzchak, which is the same numerical value of his name, Pinchas, right? And he saw that the mem, the negative energy, was floating around. Okay, well, I lost the place. Okay, and so he took the negative mem letter, and he connected it He transformed it from negative to positive by connecting to the letters Resh and Chet, and he made the word Ramach. Okay, so that's the introduction from the Zohar. Let me just see. Okay, all right, so let's continue. Now listen to what he says. Everybody look inside. Kol ha-milchamos ba'olam. All of the battles, the wars in the world. Hey. And all of the machshavas zaros, and all of the negative thoughts that a person has. He's comparing wars with our evil thoughts. The evil thoughts are the wars that are in the person, and either we conquer the evil thoughts or the evil thoughts conquer us. Okay, so all of these evil thoughts, machshavas zaros, strange thoughts, evil thoughts, adam, where do they come from? They nimshach machmas malchus einu b'yuchudim doida. They come because the kingship is not in union with its doda. Now we're going to, here we are. We've discussed it before. The idea of the 10 sefirot. There are 3 intellectual attributes: wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Then there are 6 emotional attributes: kindness and judgment, compassion, and then netzach, hod, and yesod. Netzach is eternity, hod is glory, yesod is foundation. These are the transitional emotions. In other words, just like if I want to do good to somebody, how much good to give to them? That's the secondary. If I want to be strong, how strong to be? That's the secondary level of the emotional attributes. Okay, and the last of the attributes is called kingship, and that's action. So why do all the evil things come into the world? Is when our malchus is disconnected from its beloved, from its doda, from the 6 emotional attributes. When a person behaves without thinking, when his behavior is connected to what's below instead of to what's above. If the behavior is connected to what's above, in other words, intellect and then the 6 emotional attributes, and then the person acts based on that consciousness, okay, then he's acting properly. But if a person is acting not because of his clarity of purpose, not because of his divine consciousness, but because he's acting influenced by what's happening below, in other words, the action is tied to below instead of to above, then the action becomes the spark, and that level of malchus becomes a place for the negative energies to draw from it. They're yonik, they're leeching their energy from the divine spark and malchus, and that can only happen when the last of the sefirot is disconnected from the 6 sefirot above, right? From when malchus is separated. That's the words you look at. It's when there's no union between kingship, malchus, and doda, and its beloved, which are the 6 emotional attributes above. Okay. When a person that his actions are not influenced from the moral high ground, they're influenced by the physical world. Okay, and how do we get out of it? How do we get out of it? Right, when a person is spiraling downward. Okay, so he says, he gives a very, he says when a person has to realize what's happening, what's the realization? All these negative things that are going on, it's because I'm not acting based on my divine energy. I'm acting based on what's happening in the world. And when a person realizes that all of the negative things, the whole gamut from the wars on one side to my personal conflicts on the other, all of the tragedies in the world are coming because I'm not behaving with this divine power. I'm behaving because my action is a prisoner of the energy below, of the negative energy. So when a person realizes that, the first step is to realize that these negative things are happening because of my behavior, right? And then he will have fear, yira, vira'ad, and trembling, right? Yavobo will come into him, right? And that realization that everything that's happening is from me. I'm the one that's causing those things to happen, okay? Nasa, he recreates the yichud, he recreates the union, he brings the Malchut kingship back together with his daughter, with his beloved, with the 6 emotional attributes above. He reconnects the flow that I'm connected to on high instead of below. And now he says here, I couldn't figure out how to translate it, but I should have written the words in Hebrew in the translation, but he says, V'naseh yichud yira im noira. What's yira? Yira is when a person is afraid, okay? And noira is awe. When a person is afraid, it's from what's happening around them. When a person is in awe, it's from something above them. And so by making a union of yira and nora, by making a union of fear, which is that part of me, the fragile part of me that's connected to the world, and I connect it to the noira, to the part of the strong part of me that's connected to God, okay, that brings Malchus back to its proper place, okay. Then it says the ispardu kopoel, and all of the evil doers, the sources of evil, yitpardu, will be scattered. Will be. I wrote separated, but that's the wrong word. They'll be scattered. They'll lose their ability to draw their power from holiness. They'll be shattered and scattered. Okay, that's that. Okay, that's 100 okay, we're exactly on time. Any questions? Oh, you're being too nice to me, all of you. Ask me. Put me on the spot. Make me work harder.
So if a country does good, and the world sees the bad as good, Malchut is missing from the world, not from that country that's doing good.
Right. Yeah, you're saying that you're bordering on even a bigger question. How the Ba'al Shem Tov was saying that our actions. Okay, but I heard what you said. I'm gonna take it to a different place. Our actions can change what's happening in the world. When a person, my correcting my negative behavior, my connecting my fear with my awe, I'm connecting my malchus, my kingship, the part of me that's involved in the world, with Doda, with its beloved, with the Zohar, it's called, the 6 attributes. Okay, that can transform the world. Okay, you know what? The truth is that there was only 2 people here at the beginning of the class, but that was there was a story from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and it's a beautiful story that one of the shluchim made a big event with a special speaker, and the speaker, and it was raining, there was a storm or a hurricane or whatever it was, but only one woman came, and the Chabad representative was distraught, and he wrote to the Rebbe. He said, what did I do wrong? And the Rebbe answered him that even Moses only had one mother. In other words, so what does that mean? That Moses changed the entire face of the world. Okay, and so from that action that they did, even if only one woman came, right, that woman could be the mother of Moses or somebody like Moses to change the world. The same thing with us. When we do what we're supposed to do, we can't ever imagine the implications. Okay, I tell you, we had a story at Ascent just a few days ago that a woman came to my house, and she said, "Who is she?" She's the daughter of this woman who came to Ascent 16 years ago for a Shabbos. And how did she get to Ascent? By mistake. She came by mistake. She came with 2 friends, and they thought that Ascent was not a religious place. She came for like a new age, or she wanted new age things. And her other friends left, and she was too. She said, "I paid all this money. I'm not gonna leave." And from 16 years later, she turned her entire family. 24 people became observant. 24 people living a life of of spiritual consciousness. Okay, so you can't, you can't ever underestimate what our behavior, your behavior, and your example that you do for others, and some people in a small way and some people in a big way transforms the world. Okay. And in terms of what Moshe said, okay, all right, thank you very much. Any other questions? Oh, everybody, it's so good to see you. Dax and Moshe and Ken and Reba and Lisetta and Dara and Lena and Wendy. I hope I told you those stories for you, Wendy. And Lauren and Daniel and Renata. Thank you so much for coming. And please God, I was going to say that the power of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, it's such an interesting thing. The Zohar says that when a yurtzeit, when the day of passing falls on Shabbos, so since all the souls on Shabbos are in heaven, they're not in the grave. Okay, and so it says that the power of the yurtzeit is spread from the 3 days before. In other words, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. No, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So that means here in Israel it's Sunday night. For all of you, wherever you are, it's Sunday or Monday. It's still very much within the spiritual envelope of Gimel Tammuz. And I suggest very much you just do a search for Ohel Lubavitch. Ohel. If you do OHEL in internet, it will bring you the Ohel Lubavitch, which is the website of the where the Rebbe is buried, and you can write a note in there, and they will bring it to the Rebbe's grave and read it within these days. And I very much recommend it to bring blessings on everybody. Okay, so. Right, that's number one. And number two, everybody has to take something they learned in this class and share it with other people, and then you become my secret service. We become an army together, right, to transform the world for good. Okay, we can stop the recording. Any questions? No, I haven't seen Dax. I haven't seen you for a while. I hope you're well. Baruch Hashem. Okay, good. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for.